All right, so we're back on the lift again. Another day, new day, fixing some more stuff. I think I told you guys earlier in previous videos or a previous video that these were inner fender linings. I was misspoken. They're not the inner fender linings. They're actually the covers that go over the engine and the transmission. I don't know if I said that or not. I just wanted to correct myself on that. But if you notice under here, we got a drip on this transfer case here because that bolt right there, that plug, I'll show you what's going on with it. Can you grab this light real quick? Just so I can do this. I'm trying to film and do this. There you go. So if you grab this plug here, it's loose. Like, the dumbass mechanic didn't even tighten that up. No wonder it's dripping fluid. So, we'll tighten that up, check the fluid on that transfer case or differential, and then continue to go through, and we're going to pull the tires off and then check the all this other hardware in there because we got a little bit of a clunk in the noise in the front end. So we'll continue to go through it. All right, so we popped that fill plug off up there. This is the drain plug, and let's see if any fluid comes out. Nothing. That's because that idiot mechanic drained the fluid and didn't put nothing back in. That's why this plug was loose. Now we got to fix this issue too. Got the 09 Ford Escape Hybrid back on the lift. We're just going through one job at a time, fixing all the mechanic screw-ups that he did. So we're putting bolts back in this shroud right here that he screwed up. Because he took, those were gone. We still got to hang this pump up. We got to route some lines and stuff. We're gonna do that shortly. But we got the bell housing bolts back in. We went and bought new ones. The flange heads. Put the nuts on the exhaust there. The bolt through there for the exhaust. New exhaust donut. Put that in right. Rebuilt the Rezepa joint. Put the bands on it. Torqued them all down. Hung the muffler back up, front and rear. We tightened the struts up on top. So what we got to do now is we got to route the antifreeze lines, the coolant lines, and redo all that stuff he messed up. Get all that in so you can get all these pumps back put up here correctly. We'll lower it down. Check all the other bolts. We got to put that pump in, hook that up. Slow going, but we're getting there. We even bought the correct oil, unlike the mechanic did, so we'll change the oil. We'll get the oil changed, check all the fluids, and we'll continue to go from there. Alrighty, since we're done back here, went ahead and shrink tube this up so it's safe and secure. I'm gonna go ahead and put this back in, put the wire back down, get rid of these rags, clean all this up, got the vent back in, wrap all this up, and then we're done back here. And then we're continuing up here. We're repositioning some hose clamps because the dumbass mechanic put the hose clamp on the wrong way, so you can't get the fitting in there, or get the hose clamp on, or the hose on the other fitting. So we got to reposition that. We got to reroute some lines because this is on top and needs to be underneath of this for this bracket. Tighten the engine mount bolts up because he had the whole engine out. We're going through and checking everything, every bolt, nut, because this mechanic is a complete idiot. He should not be touching cars. Honestly, I don't think he should even be driving cars. Alrighty, so we cleaned this vehicle up a little bit. Got some extra wires out of here. We're going to remove that light. The mechanic didn't do the light thing, but since we're working this, we're going to go ahead and get rid of all that and all this extra wiring. But I did find something else the mechanic messed up. Like I said earlier, that engine mount bolt we got to tighten back up. But to get it, you got to remove these tanks. To get the tank, you got to loosen this bolt up. But there, if you look down there on the very bottom, there's another nut missing. So we got to find the nut for that and go buy one. Because just like, I do not understand how this guy missed this much stuff. Like, again, he should not be touching any cars because he has no clue on what he's doing to perform any kind of maintenance. All right, so we got that bolt there for the engine mount tight. We're just checking everything here. We've got the nut tight down there. We actually found the nut laying down there because that idiot mechanic just took it apart and left it there. So now we're going to go ahead and raise it up, and then we got to fix this hose for one of the coolant pumps because the dumb mechanic, well, he just cut the damn line. So we got to reroute all that stuff underneath, but we're making progress slowly but surely. So now I'm going through and checking all these lines before I put it back up on the lift. Just rerouting stuff. He didn't have these in the clips correctly. Just a harness pressing correctly. But down here, this thing was just barely sitting in the throttle body, so I got to press that back in. It kind of like this one was on there, but it wasn't pressed all the way in. Just future problems this guy was going to cause. So we're continuing. The more and more we look, the more stuff we find, because he had this entire engine out with the transaxle. So he had to mess with a lot of this stuff, but I mean, we're just double checking, triple checking everything. We have to touch every bolt and nut and wire, connector and harness because this guy has no idea what the hell he's doing. Well, more stuff. So I'm putting that back up there, that coolant pump. We got to find the hardware for those holes because he never had that hooked up. The electrical connector hooked up. I had to hook that harness back up to there. Just little stuff of attention to detail. And I don't know if you can tell, but he had to drain the antifreeze in the radiator. But it's like he gouged that all up, messed it all up. Probably because he's in a hurry. So now we got to dress it up all down here some more for all these lines. Redo this thing, get this positioned in the correct manner. Make sure you have no chafing or none of that stuff. So yeah. Go through the rest of this stuff. I'm going to check all these bolts too because on the struts, because looks like he bent some brackets and stuff, so we'll straighten all that out. Tighten those bolts up, make sure they're tight, and straighten that bracket out on both the drivers and the passenger side. This mechanic is what you call garbage. Well, I keep finding more stuff. So this connector, let me just get my camera in there. Right there, on the right there's two pins. They got to go on the left in those two holes. Just like, not even routed right. So we got to unhook that connector, reroute the line. Like, I don't know how this guy makes it day to day to like do anything in life. Because, well, he's complete garbage. So I'm trying to put this Mex pump back in. I pulled the bolts out, one of them out. But if you look, you can see the old rust line. The mechanic put this bracket on backwards. So I got to flip it around now. Just another thing to add to the list of dumb shit this guy did. All right, so I put that clamp back the way it's supposed to be. Now it matches up perfect. The Mex pump is on there correctly. I routed that connector up there. None of the stuff the mechanic did. I don't know how he put that bracket on backwards, because obviously he just had it laying there, hanging there. So now we got to get the other line off this other auxiliary pump and connector hooked up. We got to get all that stuff hooked up that he messed up. And then we can put antifreeze in and run it, check for leaks, do drivability checks, check some more bolts and hardware. At least we're continuing to make progress. Just like I said, slow going. Got to fix all this guy's mess, all of his mess ups, because I don't even know if this guy knows how to use honestly a screwdriver or a basic hand tools. Because I mean, apparently he doesn't, because he can't do anything correctly by rebuilding this vehicle or putting this vehicle back together for the transmission. So now we got to take this fan out. We got to remove all these brackets, harnesses, and bolts to get that wire, or not the wire, that coolant line from that electric pump down there, because you can't get your hands in there because the dumbass mechanic cut the line. So we got to rip all this apart just to get in there to make a repair to this. It's very time consuming because of incompetent mechanics. All right, we got it running. We're gonna go take it for a test drive now. Got the antifreeze topped off, the line's done. We had to put that radiator, all stuff back together. That was a pain in the butt, but we got it. All I gotta do now is do the inner fender plastic linings, some plastic rivets, zip tie a couple holes to this all out of the way a little bit better. And then we're gonna take the light off the top, take the tires off. We're gonna check the struts out, make sure the mechanic didn't screw up all that stuff. And then go from there, but we're gonna go take it for a test drive. All right, so we're driving. We're in electric mode there. Didn't even test out the all-wheel drive since it's snowing. Hit the gas. Now our engine's running. Driving there. Everything sounds good. Like I said, we got some other checks we got to do. Continuing the drive. So we'll bring it back to the shop another day and we'll go through and check some more stuff out, and we got to take it for a drivability check and put the scan tool back in and make sure it passes all of its continuous and non-continuous monitors for the OBD system. So now we're pulling the tires off to check the struts and all the hardware under there, but we put an impact gun on it and it barely did anything because they're so, look, I mean, they're loose. like it didn't even tighten the lug nuts up on the damn vehicle. Like, you gotta be kidding me. All right, we got this wheel off. We're gonna go ahead and tighten up that bolt there because you didn't even get that bolt all the way tight. We're checking all these other bolts, make sure they're all tight. But that crankshaft position sensor, I put some black zip ties on there because he just had it hanging there. It's gonna hit the harmonic balancer there on the crank. So the zip tie that out of the way because it's gonna start to rub on there. So he didn't put that back. So we're gonna check all this hardware on this side. Make sure everything's tight. And go to the driver's side and do the same exact thing. Make sure everything's, you know, put together correctly because everything this man's touched, this mechanic has, well, he hasn't done anything right. So we'll continue to do it. All right, so we tightened some stuff on this side. We still got to put the plastic liners in, but you can see there's bolt holes here. We got to find bolts and plastic rivets for all this because that's the stuff on the ground over there. I have no idea where the bolts are first. We're going to have to go buy more hardware because this mechanic just, well, I don't know what the hell he did with any of this stuff. So I don't know what's going on with it or where he put it, but we'll find out and continue to go on. Driver's side, of course, there's missing hardware here because those panels down there behind that garbage bag have to go in here. So we're gonna go ahead and put the tires on for now, torque all the tires down, make sure we check that. We gotta go get some bolts and plastic rivets to get all this the inner lining plastic underneath there all put back together. All right, we're putting panels back in. I put this one back in. I gotta put these on. We gotta put the engine cover back on. Continue to put all these panels on because the mechanic, well, he didn't put anything back together correctly. Alrighty, we took it for another test drive. Everything's working good. However, we did notice that when we're driving it and putting it in park, that it doesn't go in the park all the way. It'll start rolling, and the reason is because you have to push on this Prindle or the selector. You have to push it farther up. It'll make it engage. So something's out of adjustment with that cable. Well, in the TCM, there's a system voltage local. That was just from the weak battery from before. But this P2806FF transmission range sensor alignment, that's because there's something wrong with the Prindle. We got to get under there, take a look, and see what we need to do as far as getting that lined up. And that's why this thing is not going in the park correctly unless you push it forward. So we got to look at that cable, look at the range sensor. I'm sure it's something else the mechanic screwed up because I did notice on the end of the other end of the cable where this goes, it looks like the mechanic zip tied it on to the transmission, which is not correct at all. So it may need a new cable. So that's another issue. As we do more tests, we're finding more and more stuff wrong. But we did put all the panels back that he took off, and so we're getting there slowly but surely. Just another thing we gotta troubleshoot. We'll continue to go from there. All right, I just wanted to show you. So we got the Prindle switch here, park, reverse, neutral, driving low. So we'll get over here to plug my phone in to record because my battery keeps dying. But you go to live data. We're in the transmission control module. Pull up the live data. So right now our vehicle's running. We're in an electric vehicle mode, but key on engine running. So it will start and stop if needed. But let's pull up our live data here and see. So battery voltage is 13.68 because, you know, everything's moving, running for voltage side, high voltage side. I cleared out the codes, but let's go down to, there's your generator coil temperature. A lot of good data in here. Generator inverter phase temperature, generator inverter voltage 342, generator speed 0. If I put this in, so you just move there a little bit. I just moved the vehicle a little bit. Sorry about the key chime there. But you got a bunch of other high voltage battery current, 1.7, 1.6 amps. High voltage battery, 340 volts DC. But what we're looking for is right here, shift position. So it says park. I'm in park. But just watch this. I'm going to go to reverse. Let me start over. Hang on. Go to reverse. Shows reverse. I'm going to go to neutral. Shows neutral. Go to drive. Shows drive. Go to low, shows drive still. Even though I show low, it's just an alignment issue. But if I pull back a little bit more, then it goes into low on there. So back to drive, neutral, reverse. There's park, but it's not in park. It says neutral still. There's park, and you got to push it because there's an alignment issue with this. That's why we had that code earlier. I don't know if it's because the mechanic routed the wiring wrong, or not the wiring, the cable wrong, or if it's because, I don't know, it looks like there's a zip tie holding it together. I don't know if he broke something or what, but now we got to fix that. I'm sure it's something else he did, because it doesn't even feel right when you go through the motions with your hand. It just feels like it's out of alignment. So we'll go to reverse. Look, it shows neutral. Go to, there's reverse finally. There's neutral. Drive. Low, but we're in low, but it says drive, so that's an alignment. Now I'm back in park, but you would think it's in park here, but you gotta like push it in more, and then it finally shows park. That's because there's something wrong with that cable. We gotta adjust it if there is, or get a new cable perhaps, because of well, it just looks like, I don't know if you routed wrong, like I said, or it looks like it's just got this like zip tie, twist tie looking thing that's holding it in there, which is not right, I don't believe. So I got to look into the service manual for that. But obviously the mechanic had to have all that apart to disconnect the transmission. So we got to fix this, because otherwise this thing will roll down the hill. So just something else to add to our list, that this dumbass mechanic, he has no idea what the hell he's doing. Like I said, this guy should not be touching any cars, should not be touching any tools, because he has no freaking clue in what he's doing. I mean, he's it's an embarrassment. Like, I just can't believe how somebody misses so much stuff and charges somebody for a service when they're putting people at safety. Like, if this guy would have got this running, the mechanic, this car could have rolled down the hill and killed somebody because of this mechanic's incompetence and abilities to repair a car correctly. Okay, we're in park there. But watch this. I'll push it, and we're moving, even though we're in park. So I'll have to like wiggle this thing there pretty good to jam it. And now we're in park. So we got to adjust that cable, like I said. Yeah, we're back again. I'm losing track of the days, but the reason this thing wasn't going in park all the way, because if you look at this is just sliding, right? Well, that's not right. So what you do is you put this right here. You can move this mechanically. Right between those two lines is drive. I have it in drive up there. You adjust this length here, and then you snap this all the way down. There's teeth on this. That snaps it all the way down. When you lock it all the way down, it won't move. He didn't have that pushed all the way down, which that would have, I mean, that could have killed somebody right there if you parked on a hill, because mechanic didn't do this right. But again, it doesn't surprise me, because this dumbass mechanic has no clue what the hell he's doing. All right, so I locked this down. I put this on. Sorry. I put this on, then I locked this down. So now this thing can't slide. Before it would slide back and forth, and that's all that lost motion we had. So that'll fix that. We'll put the cover back on, 2 bolts, which the cover is that guy right there. We got to check the diff fluid again, because the mechanic, like I said, didn't tighten that plug up. We got to put these plastic linings back in. and continue to check over some other stuff. Put some plastic rivets up there to hold that pump up. So we're finally seeing the light at the end of the tunnel for this vehicle. All right, so this is all popped back. I just want to show you that. Everything's good now, so we should be good to drive it for the shift selector. All right, so we got to put a new ignition switch in this. There's something that needs to be done anyways. It's intermittently. You have to wiggle the switch. So we got to rip the steering column apart, pull the steering wheel with a puller. Just not a bad job, just very time consuming. All right, we got the steering wheel off. We've got to pull the airbag clock spring, pull the multifunction switch, pull these connectors to continue to go from there. We've got the multifunction switch, clock spring out. Now we got to pull this whole assembly out. The ignition switch is over here, but the mechanism inside of this is bad. There's a security bolt here. We had to grind a slot in there to remove this bolt. We'll take this out and we put the new one in. It's a breakaway bolt. The reason is just so nobody, can switch the ignition and steal the car. So we're gonna pop this out, flip this over, get the new part and put it in. So you got to unhook the PAT system here, only over this to the side. I'm gonna go ahead and take that big screw out right there. All right, so we got the new ignition lock cylinder module. They're definitely expensive. It was like 200 and some bucks. I was like, good gravy, but it needs to be done. So I'm going to go ahead and put this back on. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put this new bolt in, and it's a shear bolt. So you tighten it up and this top will shear off. So if you ever have to take it off, you got to cut a groove in it. The reason is for security issues, so nobody can easily, steal or try to steal the vehicle. All right, so now we got the ignition cylinder back in. So we're going to tighten this up to the bolt shears. No torque spec, it'll just shear. Make sure it's in the groove all the way. There's a groove under there. I can put the light under there so I can actually see. That's in there. Go up here. We'll tighten it. And then we'll just shear it off. There. So that thing's tight. We put some blue Loctite on there. Now we'll route these wires back. Alrighty. Got all that stuff back in. Got the steering wheel back in, bolt torque down, blue Loctite. Now we're going to go ahead and install the airbag, put all the covers back on, make sure this ignition works. All right, we got everything back together, all the panels. Here's the test. Put the key in. We'll crank it. This thing is good to go. So now what we're going to do, we're going to put it back on the lift. We're going to check the training fluid again from that dumb mechanic. Just want to verify that again. Put the panels in, the inner panels here that dumb mechanic didn't put back in, and then I will drive it around again, and we are done with this vehicle. And that'll be it. Finally, this 2009 Ford Escape hybrid. Had to do a lot of repairs to it, but it's all good to go now. Alrighty, so we're putting these inner fender linings in. We had to buy all new bolts and plastic rivets because I don't know what the mechanic did with them, but also those are the ones that are missing up there because he took them out because you have these linings bolt into this front splash shield here. So that's why he had those on. He never put it all back together, but we're bolting all this stuff back in, these splash shields. And since we're here, we're going to go ahead and put a new air filter and plugs in it. And then we'll drive it, do drivability checks, make sure all the scan tool data is good, and we'll be done with this vehicle. You can see here, he just broke this entire tab off here. Like when he was taking this apart, he wasn't paying attention to detail. So we're just going through and patching this thing back up. Not patching it, but getting it to, all fixed back up, repaired to the right specifications. So yeah, we'll get all this done and take it for the test drive again. Make sure it's all good. All right, we got all the bolts back in here that he missed, that he didn't put back in, all these panels back in. So now we can go ahead and put the tires back on. We'll check air pressure, put plugs in, air filter in, drive it, and then we'll be good to go.